Good evening, everybody. This is Marty from Dawgs blog. Tonight's podcast on December 6, 2018. Just a half a day today, so there was no noon report. Judge Aniga had an in-camera hearing, continued in an in-camera hearing, actually, of the personnel files of the CHP officers with the Attorney General and the guardian of the files, or whatever their name is. And so I wasn't there this morning. Tom wasn't there this morning. They had put some things on record this morning, but the bottom line is the judge made some decisions today in regards to that. Apparently the Attorney General office had requested that it be expedited to make things easier because there was a lot of files, so they put them all on disk. And so the judge just had a disk to work with to go through with all the files. There was interviews, there was different things that were in there. There was emails and so on. She said some of the files that were really large, and it took her some time to go through them. She has received everything though at this point. She will have to make a record on another day to be clear for any appellate reviews, and she always loves to use that term, appellate reviews. Some files on the disk were not accessible. That's to be resolved, and apparently they were some emails or something that were put on there and she wasn't able to open up. But apparently she got an IT person involved and discovered that they were not relevant. So she disclosed 4 items out of all that information. I believe it was McFarland and Quintana. I'm not sure if it was Walter Wells or not, but I know it was at least the 2. So 4 items that she's releasing to the attorneys is a Kevin Pickett interview by then Sergeant Dombey and somebody by the name of Hutzel, CHP investigators, and she handed over a copy of that transcript to Marlissa Ferreira. A telephone call between Brian and Robert Woody, and it sounds like it has to be a jail call. And Marlissa Ferreira, that's already been discovered through their discovery process. There is a telephone interview with Don Poma. Now, Don Poma is Kevin Pickett's wife or girlfriend, whatever she is now, but she was also living in the house with Corey Kaufman and the other people that were there. And also there was a diagram that was drawn in an interview of somebody by the name of Jesse LeBeau. I have no idea what that's about. So, and that is all that the judge is going to disclose at this point. On December 20th, the Attorney General is going to return. I believe his name was Dews. I didn't catch his first name, but I think she called him Mr. Dews. And 9:30 December 20th to finish and clean everything up. The jury was finally up at 2:25 this afternoon. Remember, we had no morning session. Eddie Quintana back on the stand. The deposition continued on. Remember, Eddie Quintana has a lawsuit against Stanislaus County, is suing Marlissa Ferreira personally and Kurt Bunch personally, and she's doing the cross-examination. A direct examination of Eddie Quintana on the stand and going into a lot of things that I think is totally unrelated and unnecessary. But, I'm an idiot. What do I know? But going into a lot of things. And there's a gentleman who's been sitting in the back of the room from the Civil Service Commission, and he's taken a lot of notes on what's been going on with Eddie Quintana on the stand. Marlissa Ferreira started asking about why the Outlaws didn't trust Scott McFarlane. He did not recall telling his superiors or anybody in CHP about how the Outlaws felt about that. In the 10/24/12 interview with the CHP investigators, he did not say anything about Scott McFarlane and the mistrust that the Outlaws had. Marlis Ferris asked him, as a CHP officer, did he engage with any Stan Cat? And if you're not familiar with that term, Stan Cat is an auto theft task force here in Stanislaus County. It's a accumulation of several different agencies that contribute an officer, and it is just exactly what it sounds like. They're trying to get the auto thefts down in Stanislaus County. Doesn't seem to be working though. He said that he had not had any type of engagement with Stan Cat. She asked him if he patrolled Highway 99 in Merced. Or he said he patrolled Highway 99 Merced. His beat covered from the Wesley truck stop, rest stop, down to Madera County, I believe he said it was. But he never went over to I-5, that far over into I-5. His area was more eastward. When he transferred to the Modesto office, he did have some contact with Stan Cat, and he had patrolled 99 and I-5 in this area up here. She asked him, as a CHP officer, if CHP officers are assigned to Stan Cat, and if Stan Cat people provided training and field officers, and he said, yeah, they give training to him. What she's getting at is the tracker information again. She keeps trying to get him to admit that he knows something about trackers, as he's saying he hasn't had any training about trackers, and he keeps saying he doesn't know anything about them. He said he did have some conversation with an officer with Stan Cat, but he was never given any formal training with trackers. She asked him if he had radio communications in regards to arrests and activities of auto theft suspects, but he was never aware of the trackers being used on those type of arrests or radio traffic. Marlis Ferrer wouldn't let it go. Asked him if he had heard the term used in pursuits, meaning trackers, or assisted in pursuits, and she asked him if he'd never been told not to chase suspects due to trackers, and he was not familiar with that. And I thought that was kind of a strange question, but it's definitely agenda. And again, what's this got to do with Daljeet or Baljeet and Corey Kaufman? He saw an officer at the station. I believe he said Modesto. He was in the station writing reports. He saw an officer come in with a tracker that was in a box. He asked him what it was, and the officer just told him it's a tracker, but he didn't go into any specific information about it. The DA, Marlissa Ferreira, asked him if there was a fight with Corey Kaufman, with Daljeet Atwal and Corey Kaufman, which ended up in the homicide of Corey Kaufman. Objection. Sidebar. And they came back to the sidebar, and she asked him again, ever talk to Daljeet Atwal in regards to a Corey Kaufman fight that ended up being a homicide? He said no, he didn't. Asking if I'm just, again, I can't read my handwriting. I write so fast sometimes. I'm trying to get everything down. I can't read it. She was asked if he knew what kind of vehicle the Baljeet Atwal drove during that time period. It was a Chevy pickup. He said he never heard of what happened to that pickup. He doesn't know anything about it. He also said that he knew that Baljeet drove Daljeet's vehicle at times, which was I think he said it was a BMW, or a blue BMW. He knew Robin Attenhofer, which was Robert Woody's girlfriend at the time. She has since passed away from cancer. And he said she never had said anything about the pickup or Daljeet Atwal or Robert Woody being involved in that. He was not aware that Baljeet was not driving the truck. Again, he saw Baljeet Atwal driving Daljeet's car once or twice. He did not recall seeing Bobby Atwal driving Daljeet's Atwal's car in May or March of 2012. She asked him to describe Daljeet's car a little bit more. He said it was a blue BMW. She asked him if it had darkened windows. He said maybe in the back. I'm really not sure. And she asked him about if milk was donated from the Pop and Cork to charities or what. He said he had heard about something to that effect, but he didn't know where they were donating the milk. It was getting to the end of the shelf life for the milk, and so they donated it somewhere for somebody to use. He was not aware of any events that had occurred when they were taking milk or returning from delivering milk. And he asked if he would ever talk to Baljeet Atwal in regards to Frank Carson. He said no, never had a conversation about Frank Carson. Asked if Frank Carson had represented Robert Woody talking to Baljeet Atwal. She was what she was getting at, and he said no, wasn't aware of that. The Scott McFarlane, after the search warrant with Scott McFarlane, the Atwals were feeling that he was an informant, and he had never talked to Scott McFarlane about that. He stopped going to Pop and Cork after the search warrant. As a law enforcement officer, he said there were friends being searched, but that could still get him in trouble as an officer. And she asked him if he had a conversation with any of the Outlaws and talked about their rights. And on 7/15 of 2012 at 8:27 p.m. So obviously she had a wiretap. And he had to request he had to ask her for a transcript to kind of refresh what it said in that wiretap. He said he had a call from Daljeet Atwal, and this is the one at July 15, 2012 at 8:27 p.m. Where Atwal was making comments like, "Our lawyer, Frank Carson, piece of shit, yeah, motherfucker," things like that. And Daljeet Atwal saying things like, "Yeah, like I told you, this is a problem." Eddie Quintana said he didn't really know what he was talking about on some of this stuff. Daljeet Atwal discussed the reason for the officers were there in regards to a missing person. And he was talking about Frank Carson, again, calling him a piece of shit, motherfucker, and stuff like that. So Daljeet Atwal was blaming somebody just sent me a message. Does she think that other people know everyone else's business and what they do in their life? Well, they seem to know an awful lot about what other people think, say, and do. It must be in the pills they took today, because it's magic how she knows what everybody's thinking and saying. Um, he wasn't sure what the conversation had led to after that. He's reading the transcript. And Daljeet Atwal said someone was missing. And Quintana was asking, what did, a few basic questions, as the last time he was seen and stuff like that. On the both calls, apparently there was two calls, one on July 12th, 2012, and July 15th, 2012. And says a lot of the same things in both calls, apparently. Daljeet Atwal said this is on the 15th that he had been at the police station, which was the sheriff's office. And Quintana told him, get a lawyer. Daljeet Atwal said, and he told Daljeet Atwal that to make sure that he maintains right, don't talk unless he gets a lawyer, let the lawyer talk for him. He asked him if they were reading the rights and stuff like that. He said he was trying to talk to him to find out what was going on. Quintana said he has rights and advised him of his rights. Daljeet Atwal said and asked him if if his rights were read to him when he was taken in. And he said that Daljeet seemed to really didn't understand what he was saying. And Quintana told him that he has a right to remain silent if he chooses to. And Marlissa Ferreira asked him, why were you concerned about Daljeet Atwal's rights? And Quintana says that he is, as a law enforcement officer, he's concerned about everybody's rights. And he was also a friend that he was talking to. So he was concerned about his rights, and he was a friend. And he was just trying to find out what was going on. And Marlissa Ferreira said, well, were you investigating in this case? Were you an investigator? Were you trying to find out what's going on? What were you trying to find out and why? I just got a bunch of things that's jumped up on my screen. Hold on. Said he was a friend that jumped up. It's a friend he was trying to find out what was going on. And then Marlissa Ferreira asked him if he was his lawyer. Objection. Spontaneous objection. And that was the objections were sustained. And he said, well, but he did say he was just trying to help. Asked if he was trying to help Daljeet Atwal, and he said, yes, I was. He was a friend. Marlissa Ferreira started asking about the CHB Code of Honor. Objection. Ended up with a sidebar, the jury going out. So the jury was in the courtroom. What time did I say? 2:25 to 3:06 is when the jury went out. So it was about 41 minutes that the jury heard evidence today. And the judge just sent him downstairs because she said, well, we'll see if we can resolve this quickly, but we know that never happens. And Marlissa Ferreira said that it's relevant that Quintana had information on Daljeet Atwal and told no one. His answers are different than his conduct. Just had something bump up on my screen again. Okay, because I check them because to make sure that it's not somebody making a comment. Okay. His answers are different than his conduct. Quintana had inside information and knowledge, and he didn't tell anybody, is what Marlissa Ferreira is claiming. And he never said anything until he was taken into custody. Another window popped up. I don't know what's going on my computer right now. Quintana never said anything until he was taken into custody in 2015. That's when they were all arrested in August of 2015. He never talked about an altercation with Corey Kaufman when Corey Kaufman had disappeared and she said died. She says it goes to credibility. She said Quintana is trying to show the jury he was a good guy. Now this is Marlissa Ferreira talking. This is a guy that has a lawsuit against her, personally suing her, and Kurt Bunch, and Stanislaus County, and I'm sure some other people too. Marlissa Ferreira said he is not a good guy. He withheld information from law enforcement. Judge Inigas asked her, well, what is it that you want to ask? Because she wasn't sure where she was going with this, and this code of honor thing with the CHP. Marlissa Ferreira said that he was told by that there was a fight with Corey Kaufman where he ended up being killed, and he did not tell anybody. She went to give the judge I believe it was a police report. It was a transcript of something. Could have been a police report. I'm not sure. Attorney Hans requested that Judge Zuniga also read the following page that Marlissa is referencing to give perspective on what the conversation entailed. So the second page was taken up to the judge, and Marlissa Ferreira was talking about Hans said that Marlissa Ferreira was talking about the conduct of Quintana. It shows Marlissa Ferreira misconduct. She's the one that's causing misconduct right now. And this is an argument that's going back and forth between attorneys too. Hans said there was a conversation between Quintana and Walter Wells that the DA's theory, and this is all that was said, that Walter Wells said there was a theory of the district attorney's office that Corey Kaufman was killed after a fight when in an altercation. Marlissa Ferreira is not giving a truthful, accurate description of what's going on here. She's trying to make it sound like this information came from Atwalls, that they had fought with Corey Kaufman and he died. It's not done in a good faith basis. He said this rolled over to Walter Wells's conversation where they had a theory. The DA's office had a theory of what happened. Walter Wells was only saying the investigators think of what happened and the Atwalls were involved. This is, again, only a theory that the investigators have. This is gross misconduct and it's mischaracterization to the court and the jury by Marlissa Ferreira. Jai Gohill says Marlissa Ferreira cast the Quintana like he was being like the Atwalls were confessing to Quintana, and that's not what happened. It was only a theory conversation with Walter Wells. It did not come from the Atwalls, as Marlissa Ferreira is trying to represent. It's misleading, and it's contrary to the facts. Attorney Hans chimed in again and said there's no basis for that question. There's no good faith basis for that question, is actually what he said. Judge Iniga again says, well, the questions are not the evidence, only the answers. The problem is, and this, I'm going into my little commentary on this, is she will not accept his answers. She being Marlissa Ferreira. She demands that he say yes or no and does not want to hear what he has to say. So she's trying to dictate his answers. She's not listening, wanting to hear his answers. She'll say, he'll make an answer, she'll object, and she'll say, and the judge will say, just answer yes or no. And many of them were not yes or no questions, but that's what Marlissa Ferreira was trying to convey to the jury. We took a break. We came back. Marlissa Ferreira said that she asked if a conversation with Daljeet Atwal, and he said no, that he was not investigating. She said that Quintana makes references to what was said. Again, she's trying to represent this came from Daljeet Atwal. And it was told not to talk to Walter Wells, and they talked for a long time on that one day about the theory that the investigators had. Quintana did say that Wells says it was a theory of all the people involved, meaning the investigators. This was a theory that they had. Hold on. Let me see what that was. Okay. That was nothing. See, I got disrupted myself for nothing. She said then Quintana talked to his attorney, Alonzo Bradford, alone when the investigators took a break from the interview. And then when the investigators came back in, she said suspiciously, Quintana's story changed. His statement changed after he talked to his attorney, Alonzo Bradford. He said that the scenario that Walter Wells, what he was told by Walter Wells, and he denied everything. So he changed his story to what he said he heard to this is what Daljeet. He changed the story from Daljeet Atwal to Walter Wells said was talking about the theory. She also said, Marlissa Ferreira also said that Walter Wells was at Poppencork, and that was proven by the cell phone evidence. Here we go again with his cell phone evidence that cannot prove anybody was in a particular spot. They're in a damn sector. She knows that. That's a gross misrepresentation. They're in a sector that could include, Walmart and other places, stores and other places. You cannot pinpoint in a cell phone where a cell phone is through cell phone records the exact location. It's not possible. You can on real time on a phone to locate the missing skier and such, but you cannot do that through historical records, the CDRs of the cell phone. Again, it was a gross misrepresentation. And then she says Walter Wells was seen by Robert Woody at the store the night that their theory night. Again, that's a theory that the body was moved from Poppencork to the mountains. Remember, Robert Woody said Walter Wells was at Frank Carson's property and helped dispose of the body at one time too, and recanted that. Walter Wells denying to Quintana that he was involved. Why would we believe Walter Wells, is what she's saying, quote unquote. Quintana put that information out when he talked to the investigators and then said it was a theory, and Quintana was deceitful, and in his testimony was deceitful at the time and his testimony here in this trial. Quintana knows the information from Walter Wells, but told no one. She said it is not misconduct on the basis of information that she is asking the witness. She's saying, she's defending herself, saying she's not creating misconduct, asking these questions. She says the defense, and here she goes on the attack again, as she always does. She talks about their unprofessionalism, and this is unprofessional when she does that. The defense is continually engaging in misconduct, making comments so the jury can hear what is said. So she's saying that the defense attorneys are making comments that the jury can hear. I know Marlissa Ferrer has rabbit ears, and she hears everything, and she can't ignore anything. She says the attorneys cannot say these things. That in itself is misconduct. She said she listens to it every day. And she said these are reasonable questions, but has to hear all this gibberish from the attorneys. So finally the jury was called back up. They had like 40 minutes of jury time. This is almost 4 o'clock. The judge brought them back up to release them for the day. Again, the jury's not happy. They're sick and tired of this shit. I'll guarantee it. And they're coming. The jury is coming back at 10 a.m. tomorrow. They talked about some other scheduling too, and then they finally got back to arguing this. Attorney Hahn said Marlissa Ferrer has changed her argument, and well, yeah, just who is she to talk? She is constantly saying things in front of the jury that she was told not to. Yeah, she does it all the time. She has nothing to lose at this point. She is getting her ass kicked in court. That's her problem. Attorney Hahn said Marlissa Ferrer has changed her argument, and they're saying Wells said it was talking about Walter Wells, saying it was a theory, and didn't bring anything up until 2015. It is unclear, this is Hahn's arguing now, when the statements were made, and irregardless, he says it's triple hearsay. The purpose is to make inference that there was a statement of a homicide of Corey Coffin. She is misleading. Her previous arguments, he said, were different than one she's making now. She does more for arguments, trying to justify what she's doing all the time, and she is misleading the jury and the court. Judge Aniga stated that to Marlissa Ferrer, that her accusation of the defense is trying to prejudice the jury. This is a good jury, and they know what is happening. You know what? I bet you they do. I think they do. They are not that gullible, and when they hear comments from attorneys, they know some of it's in the heat of the battle and stuff like that. The end result is all attorneys can report each other to the state bar when it's all over with and hash it out that way. Right there, if the judge thinks that is going on, she has an obligation herself to step up and do something about it. She does not deal with these issues, if it is an issue, especially when it's... she doesn't deal with these issues, period. She says she can hear some of the comments made by Jai Gohel, along with Kurt Bunch and Percy Martinez. I don't believe it for a minute, but that's what she said. She says she's a judge. She can't be thin-skinned as a judge, and she just lets it bounce off of her. I don't believe that for a minute either. She tells Marlissa to block it out and quit having, these are my words, rabbit ears. That's a term we used to use playing sports. I played some professional baseball right out of high school, and we used to know the opponents that had rabbit ears, what we called rabbit ears, very quickly, because they're the ones listening to what you're saying and you're getting on their nerves and you're pissing them off. And that's the whole point. So she's telling Marlissa Ferrer not to do that. Zuniga said the question of having knowledge, and his answer was he said no, he didn't know. She says that it's unclear. It's not really, she doesn't really see anything substantial here. Reading a transcript, it does say theory, but again, it's still not clear. Marlissa Ferrer did say it was suspicious that the attorney talked to Quintana during a break. The investigators took a break and the attorney talked to Quintana, then made a different comment. But it's not clear in the report, so he can... So Marlissa Ferrer can impeach him. There's nothing clear there to impeach with. And she's absolutely right. And she's going into some of these stuff that are pretty far out there. And I don't know why the judge is doing it, but she did shut her down on this one after it went so far. She says under 352 of the Evidence Code, and that's where she allows or disallows evidence, she is finding that it is relevant, but could be more prejudicial than relevance. And they have to weigh the relevance to the prejudicial value. She says it's more prejudicial than it is relevant. And she sustained the defense objection. We were at the end of the day at that point. Again, it was a short day. We didn't get started with the jury until, I think I said, what did I say, 2:25. They were only in there about 40 minutes or so. And so we really didn't get much done today. The jury is out of the courtroom more than they're in these days. There's so many issues that keep coming up. In my opinion, they're created issues, but if you really want to understand what's going on, you really need to come in and watch what's going on. Somebody did today, came in and observed, and I think they kind of started understanding what I've been talking about. There's some things that you just, it's hard to describe, it's hard to get a handle on and explain to you without you actually observing what is going on. So that's just, and I think this person did understand a little bit more. So that was the end of the day. The jury comes back at 10 o'clock tomorrow, but the attorneys are back at 9. They're going to argue and finish these arguments and clear up these issues, and we'll see how long the jury is going to go before they erupt, because they're getting fed up. And keep in mind, this we've been giving you dates, court days, weeks of this trial. Tom and I are using from the date of opening arguments. The trial actually started over a year ago with the limiting motions. That's the beginning of the trial. And then the jury selection, which took a couple months, 3 or 4 months, whatever that was. And so we're actually over a year into this trial. Keep that in mind. The dates we're giving you is from the day of opening arguments. It was April something. So I just want to clarify that so everybody knows. Keep in mind my PayPal buttons at the bottom of each report. Donations are steady. They're not big. They don't need to be big. They're just steady. It keeps it going. And some of the things I need to do, and transcripts and filings and things like that. This all costs money, and I just need a little bit of support to keep it going. That's all I ask. That's what's been going on, and I sure do appreciate people that are donating. I have the sponsors, Merced Tile Supply. I have Doug Maynor, attorney at law in Modesto, 15th and J in the old Masons building. So keep, as I always say, don't take my word for it. Come to court and find out for yourself. It's really important that you do that. Good night, everybody.